Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya have their bid has been accepted for the 2027 tournament. How excited are you with this announcement? Or if you're not excited, you also tell us about that.
Well, on a personal note, I should say I am excited. Not every day that we get to live in times where your country or your region is chosen to host what should be the biggest football event on the African continent, or even the biggest sporting event on the African continent. So when Patrice Motsepe pulled out the envelope and it had the three flags of Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, it was excitement, especially since media reports were going around that Senegal had already won the bid to host the competition. This is news that had been moving around for close to a week, and all of us had jumped on the bandwagon and actually thought that it would be going to Senegal. So when the announcement was made, without a doubt, there was a lot of excitement.
All right, so talking about that excitement. Now, looking at the three countries now, we've seen a lot of comments all over social media saying Kenya is not ready, Tanzania is not ready, Uganda is not ready when it comes to facilities and all of that. But looking at all of the teams now, are you sure that in about 4 years' time, these countries will be ready to host the African countries?
Yes, without a doubt, when the excitement dies out and the dust settles and we all come back to reality, we ought to understand that there is a lot of work to be done to pull this one off. Yes, a lot of time, effort has been invested in winning the bid, and the big question is what happens thereafter. As we speak at the moment, Uganda has no international approved stadium. Well, you'd want to believe that by probably the end of the year or even mid next year, we will have an Ambole ready. But that's what we all have at the moment. Everything else has to be built in scratch, especially when it comes to facilities. It is not the same story with Kenya. You can probably say they have something they can build on with the Kasarani and Nyayo Stadium and something else. The same story with Tanzania. But we all know, if you've covered the Africa Cup of Nations, it is beyond having the stadiums where these games are going to be played. You'll need to have the hotels meeting the standards that CAF require rather, the road networks meeting the standards that CAF require, the training facilities are meeting the standards that CAF require, the transportation beyond the road facilities, the air transport and stuff like that. And for me now, this is where you need the goodwill of the heads of states. Yes, they signed on the documents, they have posed for pictures with the FA president and the ministers endorsing this. But now, after endorsing whatever has been endorsed, what happens thereafter? Money needs to be released, plans need to be worked on to make sure that by January 2026, because at least you need to be ready by a year, by January 2026, you are ready to host Africa. We should not forget that in the past, East Africa, not as a region, but a country in East Africa, Kenya, in 1996, lost the hosting rights of the Africa Cup of Nations that went to South Africa. Just recently, in 2018, the same country, Kenya, lost the hosting rights of the CHAN finals that eventually went to Morocco. So with that kind of history, you want to say that this time round, East Africa as a region needs to work tirelessly day and night to make sure that they don't let Africa down.
Talking about letting Africa down, one man has been celebrated all over social media, and it has to be Moses Magogo, the FUFA president, that is the Uganda Football Association president. And the question is, what exactly is Magogo doing right? Because it looks like he's getting a lot of plaudits all over social media by football pundits.
Yes, he's getting a lot of credit because he's the brain behind all this. You want to say that he spearheaded the whole idea, sold it to his counterparts in Kenya and Tanzania, the FA presidents there, and they made sure that they sold the same idea to their governments. So it all started with him, and everybody bought into it, and probably that is why he is being celebrated as the man that probably made sure that this comes to pass. But of course, there were government officials that worked on this. We've talked about the ministers at the National Council of Sports of both countries, the heads of state of both countries. But because he is the one who engineered everything, and convinced everyone that it is possible. That is the reason why he is being celebrated.
True. I also heard a comment where he said that it is always good to see Uganda play at the Afcon, but this time around, the Afcon is coming to Uganda. So I would say big congratulations to Uganda for that one. And some are also saying that Tanzania look like the biggest winners in this one, because we've seen a lot of interesting football clubs come out of Tanzania, the likes of Simba SC and all of that. But we've not seen major tournaments go down in that country. And it looks like Africa will be enjoying the very best of football when it comes to 2027.
Well, without a doubt, by the way, when you look at all the three countries, you can't say that Tanzania are probably the most football mad nation. But their madness when it comes to football rotates around only two clubs, that's Uganda and Tanzania. It does not actually also extend on the national team. But you cannot take it away from them that they are a football mad nation. Same as Uganda, we are a football mad nation. Same as Kenya, they are a football mad nation. So for me, I believe when it eventually happens and the Africa Cup of Nations is played in East Africa, when that first ball is kicked in East Africa, there's no doubt that Ugandans, Kenyans, and Tanzanians are going to be part of the excitement, are going to be part of the party throughout the competition, because I've seen the love following the football, not only in the region, but also across the continent. We should not forget that most of the stars that play the Africa Cup of Nations are stars that play for some of the biggest football clubs in Europe. So if you have all these stars coming to East Africa, if you have all these stars coming to Uganda, coming to Kenya, coming to Tanzania, these stars are actually being extended closer to these people who idolize them or who fantasize them. So there's no doubt that it will be a great experience for the fans. And we pray that the three governments work tirelessly to make sure that they actually pull this one off. Because winning the bid is one thing, working towards making sure that you're ready is another, and eventually hosting the Africa Cup of Nations is another. The tournament going to Morocco in 2025 was supposed to be hosted by Guinea. We all know they won't be hosting it because they're not ready. In 2019, Cameroon didn't host the Africa Cup of Nations because they weren't ready when it went to Egypt. It came back 2 years later, and still there was a bit of them not being fully ready. So we just need to work towards making sure that we are ready and that the tournament eventually happens in East Africa.
All right, we'll look forward to 2027, and hopefully Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda will be ready.